Hi, Bat here for RPG A Day 2018, Day 21. Which dice mechanics appeal to you? Having spent a lot of time thinking about this, ended up not needing to do a pie chart of indecision because the answer kind of came straight away. It was a few minutes and then bam, it's Street Fighter, which I thought was very surprising. And sort of probably a bit of an explanation why. I thought the Street Fighter combat system was somehow this weird hybrid of storyteller, of the old vampire stuff. And yeah, it somehow worked. It allowed players to have quick fights, not have to roll lots and lots of dice, because what you end up doing is you automatically hit as long as your maneuver's in range and your opponent doesn't like leap out of the way using an abort maneuver, which costs willpower. Then they automatically deduct their stamina and possibly any extra soak they've got from like punch defense or block or something. And then the amount of damage that you would have been doing, you obviously deduct the stamina, the soak automatically. And what you're left with is a small damage pool. And if they've got particularly high soak and you're not using a very damaging maneuver, you might end up with a minimum dice of 1. And on a D10 difficulty 6. So effectively you've got a 50-50 chance of damaging somebody at that stage. But more typically, people weren't aborting to blocks or leaping out of the way because they wanted to hit somebody back. So you ended up with this kind of strange tactic. And the reason why I've chosen it for this mechanic of dice that appeals to me is because it manages to streamline a big part of what combat could be down to a simple dice roll. But there's all these other factors that you've taken on board in the process, the tactical side of the game. And I thought it allowed the game to be streamlined played without bogging it down, but without also removing lots of complexity and still putting player agency, decision making, the heart of the combat system. And it also mixed things up in regards to storyteller was a little bit on the lame side regarding, I roll punch to hit difficulty 6 or I kick difficulty 7 for a bit of extra damage potentially. It kind of lacked anything in the core book. Now, fortunately, myself and my players, quite a few of us have done martial arts and weaponry as well. So we kind of had an appreciation for, adding that a bit of extra flourish when talking about things. Whereas again with Street Fighter, that depth is built into the system, and also because the computer games have been so popular, the majority of people, you could just, there's the game, have a look at it, and then add in some Cthulhu or pulp investigation style stuff, and you've got an almost grim, dark, gritty pulp Street Fighter campaign, which is why we actually enjoyed it. Now, there's so many other systems out there in the modern sense that work really well with lots of interesting mechanics. So it was a bit of an initial struggle to figure this through. I was going to do a quick honourable mention to Legend of the Five Rings, which again had a similar reaction with the group. We weren't entirely enamoured with it initially, but then we grew to really appreciate it. And that's partly, I think, because the raises in that game aren't quite as detailed out as they could be. Certain combat manoeuvres, they actually explained, so many raises achieves this thing. But with other aspects of the game, it didn't quite have the depth, and players were less inclined to utilise it, which they commented on. And the forthcoming Trinity Continuance system, Story Path, which is an evolved version of the Storyteller system, I'm particularly looking forward to that, because I've got an Aberrant campaign that goes back over 10 years, which also included some adventure sessions, and early this year we finally got around to playing Trinity. So I suspect using the Story Path system is going to be quite interesting. Partly because you're using a lot of modern ideas regarding effectively failing forward with momentum and consolation aspects to it. But I've not yet played it, so I'm a bit apprehensive about saying that's my most appealing system.